No. All right. So describe his face one more time for me.
So it's.
Describe the whole event one more
I will
time.
do. To describe it to an American, I would say you would class it as kind of a mill town. There's the only employees that are there is the docks that are a mile downhill like this. Right, so the docks are at the bottom, and at the top you've got the mills, and in the middle you've got all the mines. Lots of people.
Where?
The mines, the coal mines.
Where?
It's in Salford, in Manchester, in England, in the northwest of England.
So say again, Salford.
Salford, Salford. It's a very old town.
Salford.
It was the first recorded building in my town was the 5th century. That's how old it is. The place I was that day dates back further than the 12th century, but the first building put upon it was in the 12th century. It was a wooden building, and people avoided the area because that had a strange connotation, because it was a plague field at one point. So nobody ever went in the park at night and things like that unless you were in a group. It was quite in the day it was a wonderful place to be, because you're surrounded by all this industry, and like I say, you've got the docks and you've got the mines and just mills and factories. And there's just this lush area of green. It used to have a huge lake in it, but that's gone now. And back then, in 1982, it had been left kind of to rack and ruin, so everything was overgrown. There was food stuff growing there, and there was lots of animals and things like that. And this old house was all boarded up. So it was just me and my friend. And we were in England, we were in the last year of high school. So we just, every now and again, I just wouldn't go in school. I was a bit wayward back then, so I didn't want to go in that day.
Skip school, no way.
Yeah, we didn't want to go in, so we didn't go in. We just walked as if we were going to school for dinner time. We went in the morning, and then lunch was like 12 till 1. So we'd gone out, had our lunch, and we were heading back. It was a really nice, warm summer's day. I would say it was May or June, something like that. And you don't get a lot of lovely, nice, warm summer's days in England. So,
right.
Especially in the northwest where I live, because you're bombarded from two sides by just weather coming from the mountains or coming from the coast. So there used to be a place in the park. There's this old mansion, as you can imagine. It's probably 300-400 years old. And there's mine works underneath it, so there's all these tunnels and things like that. Right next to it, there's this huge, what we call the orangery, and it was a glass house, and it was warm. It was always warm because they had butterflies in there, things like that. And then they had this, what they call the sensory garden, and it had like rosemary and garlic, and the smells that came out of it were unbelievable. Right next to that, there's this old bit of roughage, so you got blackberries and brambles and rhododendron, laurel, all kind of intertwined and not looked after. And if you dug down within it, there was a little den in there. And that's where we'd go. We'd have a sliced stick, because we smoked, and you weren't allowed to smoke back then.
No way, skipping and smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, so
you were doing all kinds of bad.
Just being a typical teenager, really.
Right.
When you were in there, it was ideal because it was like those. Do you remember those old 70s louver doors, as they call them in the UK? You can see out of them, but you can't see in them. So we'd get in there. The teachers couldn't see people, dog walkers or whoever was in the park couldn't see you. And we're in there, probably been there a good hour. And we were laid down like this. We'll lay on the floor, and the bushes are here, and we're enclosed within them. And I just felt this feeling. And when I was a kid, it used to feel like I was shrinking. It was awful. It kind of came from here. And then I'd see things. And I felt that feeling coming, and I thought, oh no, oh my God, no, something's going to appear and she's going to see it. I was more worried about that, Mike. Being a kid, I remember I was about 7. And I remember asking my friends about the things that were in their bedroom. And that was the first time as a kid I ever got the side eye or that look like they had no idea what I was talking about. And that had a massive effect on me. And I didn't talk about it.
What was it you saw?
As a child, awful things that would come out of the walls. They would. Now, I'd say they were energy feeders. They were coming to feed on fear.
How old were you?
Small. Very, very, very 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Till I went to sleep clinic. And
this was in your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
I found out last year, exactly the same for my father. He just never spoke about it.
So you and your parent and your father both saw spirits as a young kid.
Yeah, I'd see creatures like snapping, snarling dogs, and the rock monster I used to call him used to come out that side of the wall, and he looked and sounded like he was made of rocks, and it was as if they did the scariest things they could think of. And each time I remember as a really small child being in my cot and holding my mum's hand through the bars of the cot, because that was the only thing that would keep them away. So my mum's got this kid that won't sleep, this really naughty kid that refuses to be in a bedroom on her own at night. And I wasn't being naughty. I was terrified. I'd end up backed up to the wall like this, and they just get closer and closer and closer to me. And there was one that wasn't, it just used to stand in the corner of the room like that and watch me. And I wasn't scared of that one. And all of the others I was terrified of, completely terrified of. But this one that stood in the corner. And I struggle now at 53 to look up and look like that just in case it's there. I still have that fear. It's still in there. So I completely shut everything down with fear. We moved house, and I thought, oh, thank God for that. I was like 7.5. We moved house, and I remember thinking, that's it. I thought it was connected to the house, you see. I didn't know it was me. And we got to the next house, and exactly this first night, I remember having a bath. I remember being so just comfortable in my pajamas, and I had my hot water bottle, and I remember thinking, I'll go to bed. And nothing has happened. And as soon as that light hit the windowsill, it started again. And it just, I don't know, it just, my mind kind of split into two or something, I don't know.
Oh, stop for a second. So you said light hit the windowsill, it was starting again. Back up. You just went right over my head. What does the light at the windowsill got to do? How do you connect that in any way, shape, or form to?
Right. I lived, as you can imagine, Mike, I'm in a high rise. So I'm in a really, I don't know what you'd call it.
You were in a high rise.
Like an apartment block. So like 21 floors, 22
okay.
floors.
Go ahead.
We're on the 11th floor, so we're quite high up. And the window was here. So you get put to bed as a kid, and you're in your bed and you lie there and you see like the dark as it kind of, and you start to get sleepy and you start to go. And as that darkness would hit the end of the windowsill, so it was like proper night time, then the fear would start building, and then there was just a light. Even to this day, if I'm in bed and I'm asleep and you turn the toilet light on or the bedroom light on, I wake up fighting. I'm screaming. I'm not scared. I'm fighting. I'm angry. I'm kicking. I'm punching. I'm trying to bite whatever it is and fight with it to get it off me. I've always had that my entire life. Sometimes I wake up and it's here, right above my face.
What's there?
It can be many things, whatever it decides to show itself as. It's normally a humanoid shape of some kind, and it's dark.
Hold on, hold that thought for a second. Okay, diverge you just briefly. Okay, so you must have some basic understanding of the difference between a corporeal and a non-corporeal being.
Yes.
You know what a ghost is.
Yeah.
You have the vaguest idea what a demon is, maybe.
Yeah.
Or an angel, or a being of light, or an alien who's physical, right? So, or a non-corporeal being. Yeah. So was it corporeal or non-corporeal? Basic question. Was it physical? Could you see through it, partially see through it? Was it three-dimensional? Was it two-dimensional?
It looked, the things that I see around the bed and through me are a solid shape, but they're not spirit. It's different. It's a different energy. Yeah, it's completely different. I can't see through them. They're not opaque or anything like that, but they're not corporeal in any shape or form.
They're non-corporeal.
No, no,
They're
definitely not.
corporeal.
Yeah, they're not of us. They're not flesh and blood or anything like that. There's some kind of energy, and they seem to, from what I know now, they
So
seem to.
you're saying they're non-corporeal.
Yeah, they're not flesh and blood. What I'm
So
saying.
they're spirits, disincarnate spirits.
Yeah, what you would, I would can't imagine you'd say probably say a jinn or a not a demon because I don't. I've no religious upbringing.
They're pretty close to demons. I know they're not the same, but they're.
Yeah, kind of like I don't like demons. I don't have any understanding of because I've had no religion as a child. I wasn't brought up with any religion
Oh,
whatsoever.
okay, so stop for a second. Okay.
Mhm. Are you all
First,
right if I smoke, Mike?
first, I don't smoke. So first of all, but you're welcome to smoke if you want. I can help you stop that if you want.
Yes.
So I used to know a guy that charged $4,000 to help people stop smoking, and
I'd probably pay it in all honesty.
and so check this out. If you, what is the reason why people actually paid it too? And the reason why he asked so much money was he guaranteed you stop smoking for life. Now here's part of the guarantee. If you ever start smoking again, you go back to him, you get more therapy. It's all free. For life, it's free.
Yes.
If it's also for stop smoking. So anytime you start back up, you go back, you get more free therapy over and over and over and over. As long as you live, that 4,000 pays for life to stop smoking.
That's not a bad bargain.
Guaranteed. Okay, so anyway, now there is a probably a group of aliens. I don't know that much about aliens. I'm not like an alien expert, but my guess is that there are many different types of aliens that are somewhere between corporeal and non-corporeal. In other words,
that's it right there, what you said. They are somewhere in between the two, and that's why I can't say the spirit and I can't say the corporeal. And some of them, I honestly believe, can be both, depending on what.
Well, what I'm trying to say here, you maybe don't even understand what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say is at a certain level of when you get up to a certain level, I think that there is no this side and that side. It's all one thing. Okay, and where you have access, like maybe the fourth dimension, fifth dimension. So, I don't know, somewhere in the mix of things at a certain level, I believe that um, that that you have total access to everything.
Yes.
That you can talk to the dead as if they're
Yeah.
because you are with them in their realm, and you also can be here because you have achieved a level where you don't have to reincarnate. You don't have to be X, Y, and Z. And I have a feeling that maybe we've already reached that level, but we decided just to go back to this level and experience this thing called life. And and you might want to listen to my interview from last night, and you might get some insight. But I'm not here to talk; I'm here to listen. So you're not sure if they're physical. So let me give you one or two of my experiences, just the briefest piece, so you understand what I've seen that kind of is relevant to what you're saying. Okay, so I was coming home one night. I was driving my uh, Pontiac Le Mans, brown Pontiac Le Mans. I was going down Memorial Street, going outbound from the city, and I passed the jail, which I've spent a night in, and the next curve past that jail, there's a curve that goes really long ways around, right? So I go into this curve, and I'm in a weird state of mind. So the middle of my car is on the dividing line between the lanes. I'm not in my lane, and I'm not in the oncoming lane. I'm half in my lane and half in the other lane, right? The line is right down the middle of me, okay? So, and then I have this vision. And what I'm seeing is, if you look in the parapsychology journals, it's called an out-of-body entity of a living person. It's not the being. It's a vision of the being. It's not the actual being itself. Okay, the being itself was just a human. Okay, but this was an image of that human in real time.
Right.
Okay, so this guy was standing, looking at me, life size, 2-dimensional, not 3-dimensional. He had no depth, but I couldn't see through him. He was solid. He was not see through, but he had no depth. So he was 2-dimensional. He's what width and height, but no depth.
Yeah.
So he's standing in my hood from the knees up, full life size. I can't see through him. I have to look around him to drive. Okay, but I'm seeing him as if I'm hovering in front of his face, but up about maybe a foot or two above his head, looking down on him.
Yeah.
Right? The only thing I can see besides him is a intermittent white or yellow line going up into the sky at a 45-degree angle. So I'm looking down on him, so I'm seeing the road behind him going up in the sky. So I see him for maybe 5 seconds at the most, or 10 seconds, not a long time, and then it disappears. And I think to myself, I've just seen a guy walking down the middle of the street. Why would I see a guy walking down the middle of the street? And I thought, well, the answer must be maybe there's a guy on the other end of this curve walking down the middle of the street, literally on the coming out of the curve, right? So I slow down. I move over into my lane. Remember, this is a high bank curve, right? Right. So I come out of this at the apex of the curve, coming out of the curve, right where the curve ends and the street starts. The rest of the street starts. There's a guy standing in the middle of the road on the dividing line, and I pass him about 1 inch from his body. Now, had I not pulled into my lane, I would have killed him.
You would have hit him.
Or he would have killed me, or vice versa, or both, or whatever. Okay, I jammed on my brakes. I slowed down. I pulled off, and I stopped. And I turned around. And I could see him standing there. I think he had turned around and was looking at me. And I got scared to death, like he was like super evil or something. And I took off. I did not even hesitate. I was gone. So my point is in this case, we're not talking about the actual being. We're talking about a vision of the being. So
right. I never thought about it like that. But
these things you're seeing could be the actual beings, or it could be that they are like maybe their astral body is moving in real time, and you're seeing of the a true, maybe I don't know if your astral body can be seen or not seen. I don't know, but maybe you're seeing, maybe they are projecting their consciousness to you, and they want to frighten you or whatever, and they're not physically coming at you. Only their astral body or some other body that they have, their causal or mental or whatever body. You could have many bodies, right? Maybe it's other bodies that's coming at you, and it's not the actual being. Not they have a physical body sitting like on the other side of the planet somewhere. But anyway, I'm just going off on tangents. So go back to these beings. How many different types of beings did you think you saw as a child?
Immeasurable. I wouldn't be able to.
Ballpark. 100,000?
No, probably around about 100. I wouldn't say more than 100.
100. Okay. So there's some. Obviously, there was some that were more scary than others.
Yeah, there were some that were really easy to not be scared of, and it kind of now it seemed as if, like I'll give you for instance the dogs. I used to get pains in my legs when I was little, and when I was asleep or when I was in that just before sleep, when these things were around, it would feel like there were dogs biting at my legs. So, as I said, there was always this one being, is the only word I can give you, that was in the corner. It never did anything. It never interfered. It never tried to help me in any way, shape or form. But if I looked at that, I could pull whatever was scaring me. I could push it really, really small and throw it away.
What were you looking at? Were it allowed you to do that?
What I would do is I would look at him in the corner, so he must have been a him, And whatever was coming at me, because they'd come at me and scream in my face, somehow, I don't know how, in my mind, I'd push them really small and push them away. And that'd make this, I'd stop being scared and it'd all get better and I'd nod off and I'd go to sleep.
So you used your psychic power to control them. Yes?
No idea, Mike. I don't know. I just used to be able to.
I mean, that's what it sounds like.
Just push them down really small into like this tight a ball as you can get.
It sounds like you're a lot more powerful of a being than you realize. Because not everybody can do that.
No, I understand that. But as a kid, it was terrifying. So I was embarrassed of it and I was ashamed of it. And so was my dad. And I didn't know then that my dad was
Why were you ashamed of it?
Because that was what my family was like. That's how it was. It was, the cure in our house for having an event like that was to get a clip round the ear.
So you would talk about it and they would smack you?
Yeah.
Have you forgiven your parents for that?
You know,
truth.
Still nips at me. It still nips at me. I'll be honest. Even as an adult, I forgave my father a lot of things, but
is he passed?
Yeah, he's passed, and he admitted everything before he went when he was going, and he admitted that he saw things in me that he hated about himself, and that was why he was the way he was with me.
Like what?
He would see biting dogs. He would see things come through the wall. He spent his entire life fighting at night, beings around his bed. Thought it was mental illness. He always put it down to mental illness. My dad could tell you the mark of a man. He'd shake his hand and he'd know everything about him. And for all...
Your dad could do that?
Yeah. For all my dad was a
What was your dad's name?
My dad was called Tommy. He was just... He was abandoned as a child. He was found. You know what a foundling is when people find somebody?
What was his full name?
Thomas. Well, the name he was given, he doesn't know what his full name was. The name he was given when he was found and adopted was Thomas James Crossley.
Spell your last name.
Crossley means where two ley lines cross. It's Crossley.
Cross by Crossley.
Yeah.
But he was found in the woods?
He was found on waste ground, on an area of like scrub ground, as you'd call it. And he just remembers being told to wait there. And he said he was only 7 when they found him.
What is scrub ground?
Like scrubland. So where you've got to remember back then, my dad, it would have been the war, just after the war. So there would have been a lot of bombing because we lived in an area where there was docks. So a lot of our town in the 40s and 50s was being redeveloped. So you had a lot of German bombing. All the streets were bombed. And back then, they didn't do anything with them because they didn't have the money to do anything with them. So nature kind of takes back over until a developer comes in years and years later. So I don't know what you'd call it in America. Just a piece of open ground that nobody wants. It's not been developed. It's just been left there because it's been bombed. There might even be incendiary devices on there. They've not cleared it yet. So he gets found there. He's 7. He's in his little suit. Policeman walks around once an hour then. Back then in England, the police would walk a beat once an hour.
So somebody found him in a suit?
Policeman.
In a suit.
Yeah,
like a suit. He had a suit on?
Yeah.
Not a suit, like a baby suit?
Yeah, I've got a photo of him on my phone. Little black suit and blonde hair, just looks like me as a kid, really. The policeman does the first beat and he sees him there, takes note and carries on, does his next beat and he's there again. And in England, in the north, in the winter time, it goes dark about 2:30, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So the policeman said when he did his 3 p.m. pass, he realised that this little boy was still there and that it was going to be dark very soon. And my dad doesn't really remember much after that, to be honest. And he was adopted by a local family and he was brought up by them. So he had no mum and dad or anything like that. And then he met my mum at 17. I would say my mum was psychic. I wouldn't say, I'd say my mum sees spirit, my grandma sees spirit on my mum's side.
So hold on, stop. So you come from a line of seers on both sides.
Yeah, now I know that. But then it was hidden. It wasn't, it wasn't
loud.
Yeah, it was taboo. Very, very, very taboo. And then they're in it. You've got to imagine it's early 60s, England, in a really working class town. So saying you were seeing things or experienced things, you would have thought you were cookie. They probably would have put you in the nearest lunatic asylum, in all honesty. My mum can astral travel, always has been able to. Saw my mum in 2 places at the same time once when I was a kid. And
Stop.
you want to know about that?
Don't gloss over that. Go back, tell me.
So we'd moved to the new, I told you we'd moved to the new place, we moved to the new block, and the sets of stairs as these in all apartment buildings, right? So my mum comes out of the flat door and what we would call a veranda or a balcony. She leans over the balcony and she shouts me. But I'm back here on the stairs, so I thought I'm going to sneak up 1 level of stairs because I didn't want to go in. I'll sneak up 1 level of stairs. She'll think I'm not about and she'll go back in the flat. So she didn't. I seen her come out and go down the stairs and look for me downstairs. So I thought, oh, I better get myself in quick. And she'll come in and I'll say, oh, I was in the bedroom and I didn't hear you, right? So as my mum's gone down the stairs, I'm thinking I've got quite a fair bit of time. She's got to go quite a few flights down. So I goes along the landing into our flat and she's in the kitchen cooking the chips. But I saw my mum walk out of the house and go down the stairs to look for me because she shouted me. And I was like, I'm not going in. I don't want to go in yet. Because as I say, you don't get a whole lot of outdoor summertime in the UK. So as a kid, you want to stay out as long as you can. You get what I mean? So,
yeah. So back up a second. So, have you ever tried to logically explain that event? Why?
yeah, why I saw it. I just assumed it was something to do with my mum because my mum can astral travel. As a kid, I didn't know that. As a kid, I knew it was weird, but I was seeing a lot of weird things.
So you're saying she was astral traveling while she was cooking?
I'm thinking of mine. She was thinking about where I was and what I was up to.
Oh, so she went in her mind
looking for me. Yeah.
Looking for you while she's cooking.
That mothers really do know everything.
You actually saw her as a normal person when she's astrally traveling. So she's 73.
How old's my mum? She's 73. She calls it relaxing. So she does Tai Chi. She does an awful lot of Tai Chi. She puts a lot of her energy into Tai Chi and she teaches it. But what she'll do is, and she's always done it, she did it as we was a kid, she'd say, lie on the sofa and put her feet up in the afternoon. She'd probably worked all day, picked us up. We were waiting for my dad to come in for tea. And she'd lie on the sofa and put her feet up and she'd say, I'm not going to sleep, I'm just checking my eyes. And she'd kind of lie down and in her head, she said, she'd imagine this big house and it had loads of doors in it. And each day she'd choose a different door. So, and that was an adventure. So she went somewhere in her head. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So that's what she would do. So as you do something, you get better and better and better at it, don't you?
So, stop. Don't gloss over this now. We're going to continue with this story. So did she ever tell you where she went?
Anywhere she wanted to go. But
I mean, my point is, you don't understand my question.
Oh, no, I don't. Did
she go to places that were imaginary? Did she go down the block, or did she go across to this side of the planet? Did you go to Mars? She could go literally anywhere. Did she ever?
That's what she did. She literally went anywhere she wanted to go. She says now.
Physical places on the earth, or did she try to go out?
If she chose to, if that's where she chose to go. So if she wanted to go somewhere she'd been with me dad, maybe when they were courting, she could go back to that place. But if she wanted to go over to America, and she was obsessed with Native American Indians, so that's where she'd go. And then years later, when they had enough money to travel, she'd go and visit those places for real. So she's been to some of the very strangest places in America that you could imagine. But my mum and my dad visited them in real life.
Did she ever go anywhere off planet?
I don't know, but I will ask her. And I know the reason she stopped doing it for a while was because she went somewhere and she really struggled to get back in. Really, really struggled to get back in, and it frightened her.
Can I tell you a story?
And I think that's why.
Can I tell you a story?
Yeah, I think that was part of the game. Oh, our Debbie's a bit weird like me. And
Let me give you a story. Hey, I was listening to somebody. I listened to a lot of people talk about various things, and I was listening to somebody. It was less than a week ago, and I think it was Fade to Black or Joe Rogan. I think it was Joe Rogan interviewing somebody, and this guy must have been really good because Joe was really buttering him up. And but one of the things he said was that he had this girlfriend who liked to astral travel a lot. And at one point, she was supposed to come over to his house, and she didn't show up. And his girlfriend said, "Where is this girl? Where's so and so?" And he said, "She's here." And the girlfriend said, "I don't see her." And he said, "She's here. She's out of her body. She can't get back into her body. She died that day."
Oh, yeah.
So when you go astral traveling, it can. I'm not saying it's going to be this way with your mom.
No.
I'm just saying it is possible that you can get out and then pass and not get back in, and you will be upset if that happens.
I think in America, Mike, you're very open to things. You're very open-minded, and I think even back in the 60s, it was accepted that people could do these things and have these abilities and could visit these places. England, just not so much. I mean, we probably.
But you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm going to correct you on this.
Where I live, honest to God, from my experience growing up as a Brit.
I'm not saying your experience is wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything you're saying is wrong. But I'm going to give you an understanding about your country. Okay, it wasn't just John Dean. If you go looking through parapsychology journals, it goes back maybe 100 years, less than 100 years in the United States. If you go to England, the parapsychology journals go way further back. So
if it's around spirit, it's accepted. That's okay. But anything outside of spirit, be it a creature, a being they don't understand, a UFO experience, you're a nut job. You can see a ghost, that's all fine and dandy. But you can't see a ghost that looks like a caveman, because then you're a nut job. It's very sectioned off and compartmentalized.
So do you surf the web? You surf the web, right?
Well, yeah, you couldn't in 82, but now, I mean, obviously now I've searched everywhere trying to find bloody answers.
I mean, you surf the web now, right? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so next time you go back to my site, scroll down the page, maybe just a little ways. On the right side, you'll start seeing, let me describe it as we're doing.
I can see it. I've got it up now.
Okay, so on the right side, go ahead and scroll down, and you'll see, let's see, Skinwalkers, UFO. Okay, so where it says UFO TV on the right side in white?
Yeah.
Okay, just below that, you see the show Unidentified, right?
Yeah.
So all those links, if you have a, they're only allowed to be watched by people who have certain internet service providers. Okay, so if you have an internet service provider that somehow is connected in, you can watch all those shows on the web, just like you're watching TV.
Yeah.
And so they went through two seasons. From the 7th episode of the 2nd season, it's called Sighting Surge at the very bottom of that section. And it took them one season and over a half before they finally got into abductees, because these guys are military, and they're very skeptical and all this stuff. And so America has, you say America's open-minded. Yes and no.
Yeah, same in the UK. It's open-minded to a degree, But then you've got, it's the same here. We've got all the misinformation. And if obviously a UFO victim comes forward, they'll just take the Michael, they'll take the piss in the newspaper. So it'll be man from mining town sees green alien up more. It'll be like that. They take the absolute Michael. So I spent the last 40 years fighting that because, as I say to him now, no, you have a right to your own truth. If that's what happened to you that day, then that's what's happened to you that day. It doesn't matter what any man in the street tells you because he wasn't standing there in your shoes. And you're entitled to have that fear. And if you still have that fear, we can work with it. We can talk you through that day. And that's what I do. Sometimes, I'll give you some for instances. I've grown men, ex-army, come out of the military, 18 stone. But they've seen something one night driving home and they can't drive that road anymore. Can't take the dog for a walk. They're that frightened. So I say, put me on FaceTime or Skype, and then you don't have to go into the wood. We'll just drive as far up that road as you can drive today, and I'll be there with you on the dash cam. And that's what I do. And then sometimes they might only get 500 yards up the road, but we'll talk about the event in a calm, relaxed way and try and break it down so it's not this huge event. We'll look at what the creature did and how he reacted to it. Kind of counselling in a way, and then each time we'll try and get a little bit further down that road until we can get him to get out of the car. And then it might take me years sometimes, but I'll stay with that person until they can walk those woods with the dog off the lead and be happy again. Because I know what it's like to be locked in a box because of the things that you see and experience, and I don't want anyone to ever have to feel like that.
Let me ask you a question. Have you seen the? Are you familiar with the story of the fishing town in? I think it's Alaska, where Bigfoot actually drove off a thriving fishing town. Are you familiar with that story?
It rings a bell, but I must have seen a million stories. It's not where an entire village just disappears.
No, this is different.
No.
Okay, so Bigfoot, something, I call it Bigfoot, but I shouldn't defame Bigfoot that way. Some creature of a malevolent nature.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a Bigfoot. It could have been.
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
Literally. Okay. Some creature, such as a Bigfoot, showed up there at the fishing village, and it was a thriving fishing village with lots of people employed. They were catching lots of fish. It was, people were making money. They had a regular job, just like everybody else, right? Yeah. This thing drove them all away. And the way it did it was it just started killing people. It ripped them apart. It pulled them, it left their bodies. It didn't eat them. It left them out for people to find them. And they found these people all ripped up and said, we don't want to be here because whatever this is going to get us. And they all left.
Yeah.
So we want to live more than we want a job. And they left.
Fear is a terrible thing. It's a slave master. Let's be honest. Being in the position I'm in, I watched my parents struggle with it their entire lives. And then I seen how my other sisters that are the same as me have just completely blocked that side of themselves off. They refuse to engage in any way, shape or form, which to me is a complete sin. Because for all of my weirdness, I've been able to get over my fear and help other people. That's clearly why I have these things that I can do.
Well, go back to your childhood experiences where you saw things coming at you.
Mm-hmm.
Describe
the rock monster. The absolute worst was the rock monster.
Go ahead.
I was terrified of him, and he was only about so big. He'd come out of the wall and he'd click and break and snap as he walked, which is horrifying to see. And he'd open his mouth and it was like he had fire for teeth, and he'd scream in my face. He would absolutely scream in my face, and I'd end up like this in the bed. And then, so in my mind, I'd imagine him, and I'd try and make his his rocks fall off. So as he was coming towards me, I'd be trying to just, I don't know, have you ever played the game Mario? Really silly. And there's a caterpillar in it that's in circles. As I was knocking pieces off him, it was taking him longer to remake himself, and I'd get better and better and better at dismantling him. And that's how I got over him. And I stopped seeing him after that. But what would happen then is you'd get the advanced version of him. So this time it'd be 5 foot tall, and it'd be thickly built like a man, and it'd do the same cracking, popping thing. And I'd have to learn again. It can take 18 months. It can take 2 years. These things around the bed have took 53 years, and I'm not beat them yet.
So stop. Okay,
so you beat him, and he'll reappear as something even worse, and you have to go through it over and over and over a level until it stops appearing, and then you lose the fear of it.
So stop for a second. Let me ask you a question. Okay, so did you ever analyze yourself enough to understand whether he was real or whether you were making him up in your mind?
No, I wasn't making him up.
No, when I say making him up, I don't mean
right.
as in how do I put this? I don't mean as in you're lying or anything like that. The mind can manifest things that are real, like.
Do you mean was it like a projection?
No. Okay, so the mind can create things that are not real as if they're real, and it can remove things that are real as if they're not real. It can do both. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. Okay, there's a hypnotist trick that it's not a trick, but it's just something that I've heard about. I've never actually seen it. Okay, but what they did was they would take and I've never confirmed this is even true, but I suspect this is true. They would take like a watch or something that the person hadn't seen. They would put it behind them, and they would hypnotize the person and say, "You cannot see me. Tell me what time it is on the watch behind me." And they could tell you what time it was on the watch, even though they couldn't see the watch. Because
I get you.
Taking the person and making them non-existent. A person who's real, who's totally not imaginary, and the mind is like blanking, taking him and removing him from the scene, and then can see something directly behind him which they could not see otherwise because he would block out that image. Yeah. Okay, and you're moving it. As the mind can remove something that's real, it can also create something that's not real. Now, when I say you might have created him, this creature, doesn't mean that I'm deprecating you in any way. I'm just saying you may have been abused at such an early age, or who knows? I don't know what would cause it, but that's always a possibility that you have to think about, that it might.
Yeah, of course. I've thought like that and gone down that road. You know, something happened to me as a child that terrifies. It's one of the reasons I've tried to be hypnotized and things like that. There's nothing. There's nothing like that.
Oh, let's go back. When you said you tried to be hypnotized, what exactly? Take me through that experience. What happened?
A number of people have tried to.
And what happened? What happened?
Nothing. Just couldn't. I can meditate myself and take myself into a very relaxed meditative state quite easily. But I think.
How do you know you weren't hypnotized?
But I wasn't hypnotized because I wouldn't tell them anything, and I knew I wouldn't tell them anything because it was myself, that was saying, "I'm not telling you anything." I feel like a guinea pig. I've had years of this. I've been to sleep clinics, and you know.
Okay, so stop. So I have a couple coworkers who claim they're macho. You know what a macho man is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're real macho men, and they say we cannot be hypnotized. And they in the military, they say, that they tried to hypnotize us. They basically said the same thing you just said. I cannot be hypnotized, is what they said. So I told them, I said, there's no such person. The closest I've ever come to a person who cannot be hypnotized is I had a client who would fall asleep. When I hypnotized her, she would just fall asleep. She went too deep. It wasn't that she couldn't be hypnotized. It's just that she couldn't be stabilized at a state of mind that's between awake and asleep. So I'm not sure what you believe hypnosis
No,
is.
I don't think it was that, Mike. I think it was them. How am I going to say this? I think they were shysters, snake oil doctors. I don't think they were real hypnotherapists.
I got it. All
Yeah,
right.
I don't. So my mind was fighting me. I didn't trust them.
So let me give you another piece of information that'll
Like
help you.
with you, I've opened up with you, and I've been able to tell you because I know that you'll understand. But with them, it was either for the money, or honestly, because it was like I felt like a sideshow. They wanted to film it and put it on telly and make money and things. I had enough of that as a kid. They took me the places they took me as a child were just it wasn't on. And these days they would say, but this was after this was like 7 or 8. That's when the abuse kicked in because they'd take me to sleep clinics, they'd put things on my head, they'd keep me awake for 3 and 4 days to see what my theta waves were doing. They'd do these stupid card games over and over and over again. No child at 7 should have to go through that.
Stop. So your parents put you through these things. Why?
My mum took me to the doctors because I never slept. And the reason I didn't sleep was because when I got into that relaxed state that any child gets into, I would be absolutely terrified that the light would come and then I'd see all these things. I fought sleep all the time. And 9 times out of 10, we pull the door to, darling. 9 times out of 10, I'd be terrified that she'd walk out of the room and the things would be in my room. So it wasn't that I was naughty and I didn't want to go to sleep. I was terrified. So I'd shout
Okay,
out, kick on the wall. So my mum took me to a doctor.
I got it. So stop.
Right? So then the doctor decided that there was something wrong with the theta waves in my brain.
What?
This, you know, like you get alpha waves and beta waves and all of the like. There's a theta wave, and theta wave kind of quiet your mind down.
Theta.
Yeah, okay. That one. There was some. Well, in England they say theta. So it was that there was something wrong with me in that department. So it was like test after test after test.
Doctors are crack.
Well, now when I look back at it, the tests that they did on me were remote viewing. They would show me cards and they would have cards and I would have to guess what their card was. So if I knew that they did the wave card, I'd put the wave card down. There was me and one other boy called Mark Rice. And we were in the same year at school, primary school. So we were about 7. And they would take us out of school on a Wednesday afternoon and a Friday afternoon. And they would take us to Langley Road Clinic. And we'd go to this clinic and they'd measure us. And they'd stand me in front of what now I would say was a sunbed. It was white lights and you weren't allowed to take your goggles off. And they'd put you in front of that for 20 minutes and then you'd come and do all these measurements. And then we'd play the card game and you'd play it over and over and over and over consistently for hours on end. And it was awful. And then there was all these other kids there. There wasn't just me and Mark, but it was
Stop. Why was it awful?
It was repetitive and boring, and I felt like I was some kind of experiment. You shot right, I can do that. I've shown you that I can do that. Why have I got to do it 15 times, 20 times, 30 times? I've shown you that I can do it. I grew up with a father that told me I was useless my entire life. So I sat in front of this professional who I'm proving to them that I can do this, and they're still making me repeat the procedure. And it was just, I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be at school. I wanted to be doing what my friends were doing. I wanted to be normal. I didn't want to see the things that I was seeing. And the tests that they were doing were not making it go away. They were making it more active. Things were getting more and more active around.
How accurate were you? The Zener cards, how accurate were you?
I wouldn't say I was amazing. Probably about 80%, but it depends on how.
That is amazing. What are you talking about?
It depends on how engaged you are, Mike. If you're not engaged,
that is very amazing. 80% is unbelievably amazing. That's very good.
I know. It's probably to you. sound like a complete and utter nutcase. But with my upbringing, that's
Oh, no, no, no.
That is something to
Don't
be
deprecate
ashamed of.
yourself.
That's
Don't.
like, oh no, I scored like 30%, like every other Brit. I was completely just like every other Brit, nothing different about me. That's what I wanted, and that wasn't what we got. I've seen Mark his entire life, and he struggled with it in the same way that I struggle with it.
Who is this?
This was the other. Remember, I said there was another boy in my class, and me and him would go
Right.
from our school. So we live in the same area, so obviously I've seen him grow up. And he struggled with what people call his mental health his entire life. And if you say to somebody that something's going to happen and then it happens, people really think that you're an absolute crackpot. So
Hold on, stop.
that's my
When you accurately predict the future, they think you're a crackpot.
No, well, you can't. We can all do that a little bit. It's in all of us, that.
But I'm just saying, you came across people
Do you
when
want, for instance, an example?
Sure.
Right. Last year, we'll do it one that's quite recent. My daughter's birthday is on the 9th of July. It was the day before Erica's birthday. So in the morning, we have like this little routine because I have such a bad night and I don't sleep very well. My husband will get up and he makes me a cup of tea. And he'll bring me my cup of tea up, and then I'll sit and I'll read through the paper. And then, because I have a lot of disturbed nights, so he said to me, "Are we all right? You had a bad night last night?" And I said, "Oh, it wasn't things around the bed." I said, I don't want to read the paper. I said, the part where I saw this thing, I've had a few weird experiences there. And there's one place where I don't like to go. I can't stand it. And then when I go, I say to my, oh, there's so many people buried here. It's awful. It's like the ground's made of dust from oh, it's awful. And it used to be a plague field, so that's probably what I'm picking up on. Says to Mark, there's a man in the park and he's dead. And he's not from round here. He's foreign. His parents are foreign. He's come home from work. He works in Manchester Town Centre and he's dead. He's wrapped in blue plastic and he's in the park. And I don't want to read the newspaper because it's going to be in the newspaper, so will you read it and see? And he said to me, Debbie, it's not there. There's nothing there. So it goes through it's not there. I said, oh, it was an awful dream. I said, I could see this man with him and he was trying to hurt him and I was shouting at him and I couldn't get him to hear and I wanted him to get out of the flat and go and he wouldn't listen to me. And I said, it was, you have a really frustrated dream and you wake up with that feeling. But he wouldn't leave me, Mike. And I kept thinking, kept Googling it, body in Beulah Park, and nothing had come up. And then all day it was playing on my mind. But I thought, it's my daughter's birthday tomorrow. I've got to get my head off this and get into, she would have been 23. So, I've got to do a birthday tomorrow and everything. So I've tried to put it out of my head as best as I can. I get up in the morning, gets me breakfast, brings it in, I open the thing and it says, man's body found in park, wrapped in blue plastic by school children on the way to school.
And now, stop for a second. So how many days was it between?
24 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 24 hours. So at that night time when I was saying to myself, right, Debbie, come on, put it away. It's Erica's birthday in the morning. You've got to, that was probably happening. And then in the morning, he'd wrapped him up, we put him in the park, and then about 8:30 in the morning, these kids had come along going to my school where I should have been that day. But obviously it's only last year and they see you. So they phone the police come out. Obviously it's a small town, the newspapers are out, it's everywhere. And he was a chef in town, he was foreign, his parents were foreign. He'd met a man in the restaurant where he worked. That man had took him home, he put GHB in his drink, it had all gone terribly wrong and he died. So in panic, the gent who was from Eccles, the next town along, wrapped his body in.
I'll stop for a second. So did they ever determine why the criminal did it?
Didn't he ever said in the papers, but it was kind of insinuated that it was like chemsex and it went wrong and he died. But that doesn't mean that's what it was. That's what the newspapers, what I think happened was he did it because he wanted to do it, because he enjoyed it and that's why he did it.
Oh, you're thinking
he did it on purpose?
So much GBH in order to kill him?
Oh, no, in order to have his way with him. I don't think in the newspapers.
Have sex with him.
Yeah, in the newspapers they made it sound like it was a joint decision. The young gentleman who died was just quite happy to engage in this GHB and whatever happened, it wasn't like that. He sneaked it into his drink, and he didn't know that was going to happen. He was not willing in what happened to him before he died, or in the act of him dying. I don't think he intended to kill him, but I think he intended to harm him.
So go back to, I've gotten you off track severely. So go back to the experience with the creature, the creature that was very hairy. That
and I'll tell you how it all ties together as well. So I'm in the park that day, and I'm with my friend. I pushed her to the ground. I remember, when I think about him, the first thing I think of is his eyes, because I made eye contact with him. And just this not being able to understand what it was. It wasn't a man, it wasn't an ape, it wasn't a caveman, it wasn't any of those things. It looked like all of those things put together. I couldn't understand what it was, and I just thought it was going to hurt me, it was going to get me. I didn't even have time to process that. It was just general fear. I just pushed her to the floor, and I got up and I run. I remember looking back to see, A, to see if he'd got her, or B, to see if he was coming after me, and he'd gone. He'd just gone. She was up and running in the opposite direction.
Okay, so earlier I mentioned a movie about a Bigfoot where the guy goes out and actually videotapes Bigfoot in the movie. You can actually see him in the woods, all the way up to his face. Right? Did he look anything like that, or not? Because that was a Bigfoot. And
I would say,
like that, then it would be a Bigfoot. He doesn't look like that.
In the same way that an English male looks like you, he was clearly a brother or a cousin to Blinker, to that actual, what Tom Standing has, or even Patty, really. He had that same look to him. He looked...
But here's the thing. Before
I don't know how to explain it. His hair was longer.
Let me go back. Okay, before you answer, because your description is nothing like that. Okay, the Bigfoot that is pictured in that movie more than once, videotaped, has no clear skin. He has, he's got hair pretty much every inch of his face.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Not exactly like that. No, he's got.
So it was like that.
No, not what I saw. He had skin.
Okay, so it's different.
A little bit of wispier.
It might not be a Bigfoot at all. Could be.
Well, you say that it's not a Bigfoot, but you don't know.
I'm not saying it's not. It's not. I'm saying it might not.
We know it might not be. That's exactly it. But I would say that's the reason I studied it as a flesh and blood creature for 20 years, because I was convinced it was a Bigfoot. It looked very much like the Bigfoot reports that were coming out of America. I could tie the height, the shoulder width, the size of it. It was about 7.5 foot tall. It looked like a hominid, or not Gigantopithecus, not like that. Like the kind of Bigfoot you get in Washington State, the big guys, but he wasn't that big. He was only about 7 foot tall. He was no 9 foot tall thing.
Well, I don't know if I'm correct, but I get the impression that Bigfoot has no appreciable skin showing anywhere on his face. An actual.
No, I've taken reports from many people in
Russia,
America, Canada, where they talk about seeing skin. There is not one single description. I mean, I don't mean to correct you like that, Mike, but that's not correct. There are reports.
You're the expert. You're the expert, so you're not correct.
There are reports where skin's seen showing. They tend to come in a you get the American typical Sasquatch chronicled shape, big shoulders, hairy face, what I would call a North American giant. Then you get your kind of skunk ape reports where the hair's a lot longer, they're shorter, a bit more crouched and stooped. They have quite long hair on the chin, but there is skin showing. Then you get almost primal man, where you can see hair through the skin. Now, I don't know whether we're dealing with a number of different hominids and we're using Bigfoot as an umbrella name to cover them all, because there isn't one typical description. So from your Russian Almaster all the way to your Hibigen of Japan, what you get is the description of a between 5 to 9 feet tall, extremely broad shoulders, very thin waist, muscular legs, arms that are longer than typical humans, so probably come around thigh high, very broad shoulder, no neck, this almost cone-shaped head. That description runs throughout the genre, but there are different, as me and you look different, each creature has its own, depending on DNA, depending on its bloodline.
So stop for a second, stop. Okay, so
I'm going to send you a picture of what
I've heard description, the Bigfoot in that movie, the way they described in the movie, they describe it as a creature that is at least minimum 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
That the weight of the foot goes down into the earth so far.
An impression, yeah.
If you had to weigh X amount, 1,000 is like a minimum, like probably way beyond 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if a creature, even like say 8 or 9 foot tall, is very thin at the waist, I wouldn't think he'd weigh that much.
That's what I'm saying, but they're not all 1,000 pounds, are they? If you're saying that it's a flesh and blood corporeal being, it has to be born, has different stages of life. So you'd have every size from a juvenile all the way up to a grey, aged grandfather.
Of course.
So if you look at Todd's other films, the other Bigfoots that he has filmed look very different to Blinker. Blinky's just one of them. He has taken a number of other images.
Who named him Blinky?
Blinky's the one you're talking about with the covered face with the hair. That's what they call it.
Named him Blinky.
It's just, I don't know. It's just out there on the web because of the slow blink. Because there's people that go into so much detail that they will count the number of blinks and compare them to a human or an ape. Or they will count the number of chest rises. So they could work out what the possible height. You'd be amazed at the depths that people go into.
So do you know
even Todd has a number of different looking, and that's perfectly natural for a corporeal animal. It should look different depending on the area that it lives, as us humans do. You don't look like a gent from Mongolia. You look very different because generations over millennia, you have eaten certain food, you've lived in a certain habitat. Sherpas can carry 3 times the weight of you, and they're probably the tallest Sherpa you will ever see is 5'6". But they are made like mountain goats to climb those mountains. Where you see Europeans struggling with air mass on, they're carrying things up the mountain because it's in their DNA. So you got people who live in the coldest town in the world, but their DNA is adapted to that. So in the same way that us humans have a spectrum of looks, your Bigfoot, your hominid, your Sasquatch is exactly the same. So your Russian Almaster, people will call it more of a wild man, or what's the word that they use? It'll come to me in a minute. Manwood. It's the Russian word for man of the wood. So they are quite happy about it. It's in their history. It's talked about stealing marijuana from the fields. They have no thing, but it's not exactly the same as an American Sasquatch. In the same way that the Ohio grassman looks ever so slightly different to, say, a Canadian Sasquatch that's in BC or something like that. So one island in America, Kitsap Island, it's on the Washington state, 22 Sasquatch sightings on the island alone. And there are, it's called, let me get it right, I think it's Kitsap, Kitsap. If I don't send it now.
Where's it at?
Kitsap, yeah.
Where's it at?
Just off not Washington DC, Washington State, just off the coast of Washington State. I'm just going to pull it up now.
State or DC? Which is it? Because that's two different.
Not DC. It's the
Washington State. Okay. Kitsap Island.
That's the one.
Okay.
Just getting it up on my map as well, so I can show you. It has 22 sighting reports on that island alone over the last 60 years, if I remember correctly.
Do you know how many there are in my state? Without looking. In my state, where I live. Without looking it up, no Google.
No, I don't Google. I don't know what state you're in for starters.
Georgia.
What I've got on my map, I could tell you, and then you're going to have to type that by another.
I'm in Georgia.
Oh, Georgia's just. It's 50.
50.
Right, Georgia. You've got the BFRO reporting site. You've got the Georgia Bureau of Bigfoot Sighting Reports. You got the GBCE, which is another Georgia state. I don't have any reports in Georgia, but I bet you, let's have a bet, that I can find at least 10 and send them over to you by tomorrow.
No, right? No, that's okay. There's 50 that have occurred.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Georgia, you look at it, it's surrounded by water. You've got that crossing there. Oh, hang on a minute. On to the wrong Georgia. Georgia in America. That's why I didn't have any. I thought that were weird. There's a Georgia in Europe as well, Mike.
Yeah, you're talking about Russia. Georgia, Russia.
Yeah, I got the wrong one. Just give me a sec. Let's have a look. Oh, no, I've got quite a few, actually. Right, so that's what I've got. I'm hoping you can see that. So that's your coast there. So these hundreds, aren't they? And they're following almost a line, almost a migration pattern.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Every time I get a report, I pop it on that map. I put the details when it came in, who the witness was, any evidence found around at the time. I then get in touch with an investigator who lives in that part of America and get them to talk to the witness, and they take over the case, and then I move on to something else. But it enables me to see what's happening in what area. So what, if you don't mind me asking, what's the name of your town? See how close
I'll give you some clues and see if you can figure it out. Okay, so I live, do you know which company invented the automobile?
Ford.
Nope.
No, okay. No.
It invented the assembly line.
No idea.
Mercedes.
Ah, right. I did not know that.
So their corporate office in America, not their real corporate office, that's in Germany, of course.
Right.
That's where they're from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but their American corporate office is in my town.
Ah, right.
Okay. Now, I'll give you another clue. Let's see. What kind of clues can I give you? So UPS. You've heard of UPS?
Yeah. Yeah. We do have that in England, I think.
Okay. Well, UPS, their corporate office is in my town.
Oh. I don't know anything about cars. All I'm getting is cars, and that means nothing to me.
Just put in UPS corporate office.
Oh, I was trying. I didn't want to Google it. I was trying to get it.
No, I'm not trying to make you psychic.
No, that's what I was trying to do.
You're already that. I can't make you that.
I was thinking, I'm not getting anything. All I'm getting is cards. Mercedes, United States head office. See, I didn't know I was allowed to choose.
No. Just do UPS. Forget about Mercedes.
UPS. I think we have that in England. I'm not sure.
Don't do England. Just put UPS.
No.
UPS corporate office. 3 words. UPS corporate office.
Yeah, it's coming up. 55 Glen Lake Parkway, Atlanta, Georgia. Am I right? No. Well, that's what we're getting.
No, you're close, but that's not it. Okay, it doesn't have an Atlanta address.
Right. It says NE.
Hold on. I'm going to Google it myself just because you're Google challenged. I'm going to give you. Oh, it does have an Atlanta address.
Yeah.
That's stupid. It's not in Atlanta. It's not anywhere near Atlanta.
They're missing out on business then, aren't they, mate?
Okay, so let me go to the thing here. Okay, so there's the corporate office.
Yeah, Atlanta or Miami. That's all you get. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, go to the map.
Yeah.
See, okay, you're on the map, right? You on the Google map?
Yeah, I am on Google Map. I'm on my map. So where are you sending me?
No, not your map. I'm talking about Google.
Yeah, my map is a Google map, so it works the same.
Okay. So do you see the corporate office? The
Yeah.
UPS? Okay. Scroll out a little bit where you can see a bigger picture where you're not drilled down too far. And look to your left down a little bit ways, just like an inch, where it says like the freeway, it says 19. It's also called 400. And to the left of that, there's two words. What are they?
1 second. Right. So I'm near the Glen Lake.
You see 285, you see 19, you see all these freeways, right? On your map?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Google to catch up. That's all. I'm just because I'm on. She's a bit slow.
You've got a slow connection.
Right. So 19, yeah, I've got that now.
Okay, to the left of the number 19, do you see any words, big words there?
Perimeter, the Art Institute of Atlanta.
No, that's on the right side. Perimeter Center, Perimeter Mall. On the left side, is there any
Sandy
words?
Springs.
There you go.
Sandy Springs, right.
That's where their corporate office is. It's nowhere near Atlanta. It's in Sandy Springs.
Right. I'm just seeing if I've got any. What's my closest one to there?
Well, the closest one that I know of is down south of here.
We've got one just above, I would say to the northwest in Rome. That's from a ginseng hunter who was picking them. Looking, Somerville, Georgia, he was at. That was in 1986. And then I've got one on Highway 55, is that? Let me have a look. And then there's just so many. That's the problem. There are so many in America. In England, it's lovely because you can just see little hot spots. But in America, there's just so they seem to go between Birmingham, Alabama, all the way up to Virginia. There's a long line of Sasquatch sightings. You've got a couple sees Bigfoot, a motorist sees Bigfoot, a ginseng hunter sees Bigfoot, a lady sees a Bigfoot cloaking, because obviously we get those reports as well. A bush.
My wife wants to meet Bigfoot.
Sorry?
So my wife.
I married Bigfoot.
I do.
May sound
Bigfoot.
Yeah, but I mean, getting back to that day, I thought it was a Bigfoot, Mike, because I saw that Sykesville monster. The Sykesville monster was a Bigfoot, so I thought, right, that's it. I've solved it. I know what it is. But it's impossible. In my head, I'm thinking, I live in a town. I don't live in the middle of nowhere. So then I spend the rest of my time answering questions like, where did it come from? How could it be there? If it's corporeal, where would it be eating from? And there is a decent river route that runs from about a mile away from the park, and it runs up the centre of England, a little bit like the old Appalachian Trail. You've got this core set of mountains with valleys in between that something hypothetically could move along if it was flesh and blood. But I also looked down the spiritual side of things in case it was a ghost or a spirit. I looked at time slips in case it was kind of some time event. I tried to find out if I was hallucinating, but she saw it too. So, and we still speak. The last that I was with that day, we didn't really speak to each other the day after because I pushed her to the ground and left her. But do you know what was scarier than seeing him? There's an event there of an hour that I don't remember. So I remember.
Oh, stop. Now you've caught my attention. Okay, you finally got my attention.
I remember seeing him.
Hour after you met him, hour before you met him, an hour when? When was the hour missing hour in relation to him?
I seen him. I pushed her. I ran. I remember looking back to see where he was, what he was doing, and he wasn't there. And my next conscious thought, I came to on a road that was about 3 miles away as the crow flies. In the right direction. I was in the right direction for home. And I remember coming to and thinking, oh, I've got to go across the dell. And the dell was like this valley that's shaped like this. And the grass in it was 6-7 foot high. It was just, I thought, I'm not going through there. That's where it'll be. It'll be in there. It'll be in there waiting for me. That was my next conscious thought. And I realised that an hour had passed and I could have done that running the way I was running, screaming, in 10, 15 minutes. Because if you went by the roadway, you know, it'd take a while. But when you're a kid, you go across that park, one road, you're over the dell and you're home. I pulled up to the road and I thought, I'm not going over the dell. There's no way I'm going over that dell. So I walked around the motorway, what you call a highway. I walked the highway.
Stop for a second. You talk right now. Are you talking about after?
Yeah, just after.
After. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it should have been.
Oh, before you go ahead. How much missing time?
I'd say about an hour because I didn't have my watch on, but I knew that the light had changed. The cars had the lights on the road, and I just remember thinking. At that time, all I could think about was getting home. I knew it was weird, but I didn't want to think about what had happened or the event or it, because I honestly thought it was coming after me, and I honestly thought it was going to pop up in front of me, out behind a tree or come up out of the grass, or something like that. I just remember running home, running in the door, telling my mum what I saw, and honestly, my mum said, "Get upstairs, get your uniform off. You look a right mess. Why are you in at this time? Where have you been? And you better get changed before your dad come in." And that was all the counselling I got, Mike. Yeah. I had snot, tears. I lay on my bed. I cried my eyes out. She finally came upstairs and said, "Right, what's going on? What's wrong with you?" And I said, "Mum, I was in the park and something tried to get me and Deborah." And she was like, "What, a man?" And I was like, "I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a man. I don't know what it was, but it tried to get us." And she was like, "Oh, it'll just be a homeless man or a tramp. Like, stop being so dramatic and just get your uniform off." So I just kind of didn't speak about it. And
parents are always so fun to be around.
Yeah. And you know what's awful? Years and years later, and I still have a lot of anger about this. She was in the park and she had anaphylactic shock, and a friend took her outside, and it was late at night. They were at a function hall there, and she said, when she was waiting for the ambulance to come, she saw this grey hairy thing leading out of the bush and growl at her. And I said to her, "Why didn't you tell me? Because why did you leave me all them years as a kid thinking that I was mental, thinking that I was cracking up? And you've seen the same thing." And she was like, "I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it."
What was she saying? Say it again.
She just didn't want to talk about it,
Oh.
which is hard ground for me, because one of the things I struggled with as a kid, I didn't know if my parents knew about it, him, whatever they are, and they just lied and said that they lied to me really and just said, "Oh no, you're just imagining it." Or even worse, they had no idea, and adults didn't have any idea that this thing was out there, because to me it was a monster. So I didn't know what was worse, having them lie to me. So for her to have said to me, if she just said to me, "I seen the same thing, Deb," it would have been, my life would have gone in a different route, Mike. Yeah, I wouldn't have had this drive to prove to me and everybody else out there that I'm not a liar. Look
at what someone.
Oh, I recognise that. Is that Lon? Oh no, I'm trying to.
You know where that's at?
No, remind me.
It's in a Bigfoot museum that we have here in Georgia.
Is that who runs it called Michael?
What's that?
Is it the gentleman who runs is he called Michael? Who runs the museum?
I don't know if they say who runs it.
Great, like a grey-haired fellow with a white-haired one is with a beard. Oh, I can't think of his name. Won't come to me now. But so as a kid, not being, if she'd have said to me, "Oh, well, I saw it as well," I think that'd have been quite affirming, rather than I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. So it was just another reason I just kept quiet. And
okay. The guy that owns it is named David Bakar.
No, it's not. Has he got? He's not got white hair and a beard.
I don't know, but he's a member of the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization.
BRFO. Yeah. That's where you need to look for Georgia reports. They've been in existence for such a long time, and people report to them consistently. I think it's just one of the most well-known areas to report a Bigfoot sighting in America.
Can you hold on just a minute?
Yeah.
All right, I'll be right back. Take a break if you want one.
Okay, I'm all right. Deborah. Right, where's that? Where I put my brain?
Shiloh, come on in. You want to come on in, hang out with me? I'm in here. Come on. Come on. Bye. Watch out. Move. Yep. I got to get my doggy out of the way. Come on. All right. So did what you saw look anything like what I just showed you?
In a brother or a cousin kind of way. Not exactly the same, because obviously it's just not exactly the same. I think. 1 second. Have you got your LinkedIn up? Because if you have, I can send you.
Okay, so you want to see what this guy looks like? So.
Good luck. The white one. No, he didn't look like the white one.
This is the owner.
No, I'm mixing them up. There's an old gent who's been at a Bigfoot museum for years and years, and he has some of the original models from Bluff Creek when they measured out the tree size to try and get his size. He has a lot of that stuff. I thought that's where you'd been, but he's called Michael, I think.
Well, there's quite a few so-called experts of Bigfoot. This last Friday, I was talking to my boss.
Oh yeah, there's millions of experts, and that's the problem. There's so many of them. Yeah, trying to network with them all can be.
This last Friday, I was talking to my boss, and he said he was going to spend the second half of the day on Friday and all Saturday and Sunday in a little town called Helen. And I said, is that anywhere near Blue Ridge? Blue Ridge is the town that people go to that's right at the base of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Helen, I said, is it anywhere near Blue Ridge? And he said, oh, it's at the base of the mountain. He didn't know. It's like you could probably hit the two towns with a rock. They're like right next to each other. And so, he was basically going to Blue Ridge, but the next town over, which is like, maybe half a mile away or a couple miles away or something, and I told him, I said, there's I didn't realize you guys had Bigfoot here. I've had 50 sightings here in Georgia. And, him and my other workmates are all like, total skeptics. So there's no such thing as Bigfoot, all this stuff, came out of it. But going back to your story, I don't want to dominate this. I want you to dominate it. So
after that event in the park, I really, really shut down. I wouldn't engage in anything. I saw it all as really dark and negative, and that's what it becomes for you, really, doesn't it? When you everything. So if I see like something out of my peripheral vision, I think I was kind of stuck on flight off, right? I would see that as scary or like an incoming attack or something like that. So I just completely closed myself down, refused to engage. I didn't do anything from 15 to probably about 32, 33. And then life events happen. And my husband said to me, I'd always research, don't get me wrong. I'd always look for other people. I'd set the map up by then, so I started logging, and that was my way of coming to terms with the Fairmite, was to try and understand what I'd seen. So I thought if I can pull it to pieces and understand it, it won't be so scary. I never put that event together with the other strange things that had happened in my life. That's just something that's happened probably over the last 10 years, where I thought, oh, that's really strange, maybe, in a way that it is connected, and what I saw that day was not flesh and blood. It was something else. I wondered if it was projection of something, or I've tapped into the energy of the area somehow, and I've seen that. So many questions, and I still have them to this day. But I didn't tie it all together till I'd started interviewing other witnesses. Now, I've probably taken, I had a count the other day, and I took over 1,400 personal encounters from all across the world, but probably Brits, about 700 from the Brits themselves. So as I'm taking those encounters and I'm recording the calls like we're doing now, and I listen to them back, I start to see patterns and descriptions. And I also start to get more and more known in the UK, but only for Bigfoot and just Bigfoot reports. And then people start getting in touch with me about what you would class as a dogman or a werewolf or something like that. And I realised that nobody was taking the reports seriously. And I think it's not about the reports, this witness, this person that's struggling with this event. So I'd start taking their reports, and then I'd get, well, I've got a reptilian report, nobody will listen to me. I got a police officer who saw his head sergeant, whatever, I don't know what the head of his division was called, kind of morph very quickly from what he described as a sneering reptilian, and then morph back into its human shape. So I get witnesses to that.
That probably was a reptilian.
I would imagine so, yeah.
It can't shapeshift,
So what I do then, Mike, is I don't tell them anything. I go in blind. I take the report from them, and then when I've got them to a place where they're beyond like the fright, and I say to them, right, well, here's another person who saw the same as you, and they live 4 towns away, or they live 100 miles away. Gives them a little bit of validation, and it takes away that, oh, I'm on my own. So I start getting more and more reports like that. And then now, because my husband had an event when he was 21 that he's never spoken about, it absolutely terrified him. And so for most of our married life, he hasn't spoken about it. But he was with 3 other men when it happened to him. So then, oh, are you there? Oh, right, I forgot that. I've saved it.
I sent you a chat. Did you get it?
Yeah, but because I'm on here, right, got it. Yeah, I can see it now.
Put it, copy it or paste it or click on it.
Yeah, so my hubby had an event and he wouldn't talk about it.
Go ahead, yeah.
And so he watched me with the witnesses and things like that. I've not got enough Wi-Fi signal. If I open that, I'll have to open it after we finish speaking.
Okay, come back then.
Yeah, I don't know how to come. 1 second. Oh, where have you gone? Ah, there you are.
There you are. I got you back.
Right, but I've done it. Yeah, so he started opening up about this event that he had. And it turns out that he lives in this town that I live in now, right? But I didn't live here. I didn't move here till 96. And it's much more rural up here. And you'll have heard of Jodrell Bank. It's like this huge satellite dish that sends out signals in the airways and it comes back in. And there's a lot of UFO and sighting reports of aliens and craft around that area. And we seem to... Sorry? Jodrell Bank.
One more time.
Jodrell Bank.
Spell it.
Jodrell Bank.
Jodrell Bank?
Yeah, it's huge. It's like this. It's known all over the world. It emits signals out into space, and then it waits to see if they beam back.
What beam signals out into space?
Jodrell Bank. It's like, I don't know how to explain what Jodrell Bank is. It's like a huge satellite dish in the middle of England. Biggest
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a satellite dish.
Yeah, and they monitor it constantly, and they send signal out, and they get signal back in, and things like that. So as you can imagine, you get a lot of unidentified flying craft and witness abduction, missing time events around that area. And there's another area called Winter Hill, and it's where I live, and it's a huge hill. It's like the highest hill around, and it has a massive radio mast on it, that just goes.
Sorry, Jay doesn't dominate the house.
That's my wife.
Oh yeah, so it has a huge radio mast. So between those two areas, there seems to be a flight path of UFO. People report. My hubby's with 3 friends. He's out with them. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning, and they all. But they knew where they were going. They were walking towards like an all-night garage, a petrol station. So there's no shops that are open or anything like that in the UK 24/7 back then. So if you didn't have anything, you had to walk to the main highway, walk down the highway to get to an area where you get what you would call gas for your car. So that's what they were doing. And they were walking, and the next thing they come to on top of this hill, head to head, all 4 of them, in a cross shape, and there's a big light above them. And they all said, because I interviewed them separately, that it kind of zip, and then took off for Winter Hill, which is the big radio mast there. So starts looking for other people who've experienced a craft within that area. Because I'm thinking, if there's 4 of them, there's got to be more people, aren't there, that have seen them. And I found about 20 of them up to now. Each of them have missing time experiences. We've got a lot of animal mutilation going on.
How many? Back up.
How many of them?
Found how many? Yeah.
About 20 of them.
So 20, you've found 20 people who are at missing time?
Uh-huh.
Okay, go ahead.
Strange patterns, Mike. Each lost an hour and a half of time. So not 3 hours or 5 or 2. Or each one said about an hour and a half. 2 of them have got a lump here behind their ear. I can't find anyone that will test them with an EMF meter. I can't find anyone that would try to arrest them. I can't find anyone that's prepared to help them. The only person up to now that's listened to them is me. And that's in one town in the UK. So you multiply that. There are thousands of people out there that I could put in touch with you, that you could.
You know what they ought to do, right?
Get in touch with you.
No. Something more important than that. What they ought to do is get together and charter a flight to Atlanta.
Yeah,
have one airplane, one airplane with, not just 20, but you have to get enough people to get a bigger plane. The bigger plane, the cheaper it is per person. So then they just have to pay for a hotel here while I got through all of them.
Yeah,
Take a while to go through.
Yeah. But you see, even that, I said, why can't you do it over Skype? Oh, you can't do it over Skype. Why? Why can't you do it over Skype? If I'm here with them, actually here in the physical with them, and you do the hypnotherapy session over Skype, and you go, and I bring them back out of the relaxation, I'll sit and counsel them over the event, I'll wipe the tears, I'll do whatever needs doing. Is that something possibly we could look at? Well, I'll do it if it's a UFO. I don't really want to do it if it's anything else. But there's thousands of people out there. Surely you want case studies. Surely you want to understand. But just like banging your head on a brick wall. So I thought, right, start reaching out. Just start trying to find anyone you can. It's even, I mean, I'd even put myself up as a test, as a guinea pig. You know, you can film it, you can put it on wherever you want to put it. I don't care. Yeah. Sometimes you have to have one person that's prepared to do something, and then other people think, actually, that might work for me. You know, that might be something that can help me with that event where I'm stuck in that event kind of thing. So to use it to my advantage, I've done that. And all of these people that are in the little towns have said to him, do you want to be a volunteer investigator? If a case comes in close to you, whether it be paranormal, whether it's UFO, it's a cryptid case, if it's around your skill set, do you want to jump on it and investigate it? So I think we're at about 500 members now and building. So I might make it to Atlanta. You never know.
Well,
Club in.
what you do is you call whatever airline is take you from where you're at to where I'm at. You say, if I can get 21 people to go here in a flight altogether, we'll all pay. What kind of rate can you give us for 21 people? See if they give you a really super cheap rate. And
if it's meant to happen, it will happen. I found that one out. Yeah, the universe will provide. But at the end of the day, I think it's. I want to be in regress myself. Don't get me wrong. I do want to. I want to go back to that day and look at it again without the fear and the running. But also, I want to go back to those early events when I was little. Those things that I saw in the bedroom. Because like you said, I still have that nagging doubt that was my imagination, even though it was as real. But I've got a 53-year-old mind, and I'm trying to think as a 2-year-old child or a 3-year-old child. Do you know, I actually remember being that terrified of them that I knew that if I woke my mum and dad up, they'd come in and give me a crap, but I would kick on the wall so that they'd wake up and come in my bedroom, because once my mum come in the room, everything would disappear and it'd go quiet again. And then I'd start to nod off and they'd go, but hopefully I could get to sleep quick enough for it to all to stop. But I think I'm stuck on flight or fight, and that's why I have the night terrors at night. I think I'm still stuck on that fear from being a kid. And I don't know, because I'm not a hypnotherapist, if you can cure something like that. I suppose that's what I'm asking you. Can you cure something like that, like those night terrors?
Well, I used to think that chemotherapy could cure anything, and I've had some really good success with clients. And the very first guy I ever worked with, he paid me $20 a session. It's like nothing. You know? And he came to me because he had muscle tension in his body. His father had abused him a lot as a kid. And we had 4 sessions. And each time after the session, I'd walk him out to his car. And I had no idea whether it was even working or not.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I would ask him, did it work? What happened? You know, did you benefit? Give me some feedback.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't. He wouldn't say a word. He just got in his car and drove up. He wouldn't say a word. So then he kept doing that over and over. On the 4th day, 4th session, the last time I saw him, just before he got into his car, he looked at me and he said, you know, I feel better about life now than I've ever felt in my entire life, even though I'm still unemployed. He got in his car and drove off and never saw him again.
Yeah.
And so he obviously made a change. He felt better now than ever before.
Fit his skin for the first time, probably. That's why he fits his own skin for the first time, probably in his life.
Well, I was never able to regress the guy. All I did was give him positive affirmations. So without any regressing, without going back to the event. All he got was positive affirmations, and yet it completely changed his life. So what I'm saying is that you can't really discount what it can do for you, because it can work miracles. But then you also can't promise things either, because you never know.
I do understand that. Because if it's not something I'm projecting, if it's something that's happening around me, then
Well, it doesn't really matter whether you're projecting it or not. In the end, what matters is that it doesn't affect you any longer.
yeah,
So if you were projecting it, that doesn't mean to say there's something wrong with you. What that means to say is that something caused you to go into a state where you're projecting these things. Something happened to you before that caused you to start doing that. And then you have to go back and work on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've done a lot of work on myself in the last 5 years, and I finally fit the skin that I'm in. I don't, all those, that shame and all of that I used to feel, I'm not apologizing anymore. It's my truth. It's my life. I don't know anything. And if somebody doesn't understand me, it's not for me to try and make them understand me, in all honesty. As long as I know what happened to me, then that's it. There's nothing, you can't change what another person thinks, can you really? So I don't bother anymore. But I also engage with people that I see go from that frightened, terrible stage through the process and out the other side. And like the gentleman you spoke to, they start to fit the skin for the first time. I see them get confident again. I see them suddenly shake off that cloak of shame and stand up straight and have a bit of pride about themselves. So I'd be a fraud if I wasn't doing that for myself at the same time that I'm doing it for them. So I've had a lot of positive affirmation that way. And they don't, scaring is the wrong word. I think the fight is just automatic pilot. I don't think I'm fighting anymore because I'm scared. I think I'm just fighting because if you put a light on around me, it's something to do with this bloody light. If you put the light on around me, I just start, I don't know, I really, really don't know. My daughters would creep around at night because the minute they flick the toilet light on, I'd start screaming like a lunatic. I think the last time it happened was about 4-5 nights ago.
So when you say the light comes, you mean the light that frightens you?
Yeah, it's the light that frightens me more than it, because everything else I've been able to make it go away. But that's the last battle, I suppose. I can't.
So what is the light?
I don't know. And honestly, Mike, I didn't realise that the screaming and the light were connected until about 12 months ago. My daughter moved into her own place with a boyfriend. And one of the flippant comments she said was, "Oh, at least I can turn the light on in my own house." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she went, "Every time you go to the bathroom, you start screaming." And I looked at my husband and I said, "I'd never put the two things together before. I'd never realised that putting the light on or shining a torch on me mobile phone lighting up, putting light on my face, that sets me off fighting. But I'm not scared. I think I'm programmed when that light was on that I react by fighting." So what happened? What was the first light? Or was it a reoccurring light? And that's what triggered the event.
I've worked a lot for the government, and I worked overseas in war zones in Afghanistan several times. There was a guy I knew in Uzbekistan and former Russian Republic, and I was on a base there called K2, and he mentioned that he was traveling with his mother in between two cities. And he never would admit having any strange experience, but he told me about this experience, and you be the judge. Okay, so he's driving along with his mother. She's driving. He's riding in the back seat, and he said she drove off the road and hit a large boulder. And then when he woke up, he was like, slumped down. He woke up He looked around. He had no bruises, no scratches. He got out of the car. He looked at the front where it hit the boulder. There was nothing wrong with the car. No scratches, no bruises, no
Yeah.
damage to the car. So it's like the car drove off the road and stopped right next to a boulder, and he passed out. And does that make a lot of sense to you?
Well, I would say that when he saw the light, he'd probably been abducted. That's
I figure that's probably what happened because, you don't just drive off the road
no.
and hit a boulder and no dings, no scratches, no no dents in the car, no flipping of the car,
Yeah.
no nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
your car does not come to a perfect stop in
No,
front of
it doesn't. No, I got events from people where they've one he's walking down Stainsfield Road, and the next thing I'm a mile and a half away at the dam when I come to, and I've lost an hour. So this is a gent with a ball in his neck, by the way. But sometimes they make mistakes. I took a report from a couple, and they were having. This gent said that it was almost like they were being visited on a regular basis because the back of the house would light up with light. You'd see his wife asleep in the bed. You'd see himself get up. For all he was in the bed in his physical self, he would get up and walk towards the back wall. And he said one time they woke up in the morning and he was in his wife's spot and his wife was in his spot, and they all slept in the same bed. So it was as if they'd put them back in the wrong place, or he'd been put back in the wrong place, kind of thing. So little things like that make you think, if you're walking towards a light and then you wake up and you're in the wrong, that would suggest to me, I don't want to influence you in any way, but that would suggest to me that you've had some form of interaction with alien life. And then I usually say, can you remember any other events like that? And they 9 times out of 10 say, well, it's funny you should say that, but when I was a child, and then they start talking about the things they experienced as children.
Can you hear my wife screaming?
Yeah. I don't know where my husband's gone, actually. It's 8 o'clock here. I shall have to go and feed him in a minute. I've not fed him yet.
Who are you going to feed?
My husband.
Ah.
My poor long-suffering husband.
My wife is screaming at one of our dogs to get out of the kitchen because they're in there begging for food while she's cooking.
Mine are the same. And we used to have 2, and the cat, but we've just lost our oldest dog, and the cat's passed away. But the one we call the puppy, who's 11, goes through the same routine. If I get up, as soon as I go in that kitchen to cook the tea, she's under my feet. And I'm trying to cook and she's under my feet. She's after scraps. And the second you finish, she's waiting at a bowl for any leftovers that you have. Well, yeah, I didn't even realise it was 8 o'clock. I was just thinking, I'm not even fed him yet.
Well,
yeah.
we'll end this in a moment then. So, since you took the time to be on my show, if you want to promote yourself or your endeavors in any way, and you want to say something about something you do that will help people find you or benefit from you or hook you up with a national TV spot where you can become famous, that sort of thing. You know how it goes, right?
Yeah, what I'm really after, I think, is I'm looking for anybody that's got a skill set or they've experienced something strange. Just somebody that, if I get a witness here in the UK who says, I've experienced a reptilian, and they just don't know where to go with it, just put Debbie Hatswell in Google and I will pop up, I guarantee, if you Google him from the UK. But anywhere across the world, I am sure that if I can't help you, I can put you in touch with somebody that can, because I've just got so many contacts. And if I can't contact you with someone, I'll find somebody that can for you. So just Debbie Hatswell at gmail.com, all lowercase, and you'll find me. And I'll send you I think you've got my email address anyway, haven't you? So just get hold of Mike, and I'm sure Mike can send you my way.
So what's your website?
My website, I think it's just called Deborah Hatswell. Cryptid Creatures and the Unexplained. And my YouTube channel is just Deborah Hatswell as well. I've tried to make it as easy for people as I can to find me. Yeah, Deborah Hatswell, Cryptid Creatures and the Unexplained. But
So if they Google that, they can find it.
yeah, they'll find me. And if anybody wants a copy of the map, because lots of people like going out and having a look at the sighting areas or looking at an area where a UFO event's happened, just let me know and I'll send you over a link. It's free and you can click in, and that way you can go and visit the areas yourself and see if you get any feels for the place or anything like that. Yeah. So thank you, Mike. It's been really nice talking to you.
Same here. The place that I sent you the link to is a sighting in Clayton, and Clayton is exactly even with Blue Ridge, which is right next to where my boss went this weekend.
Right.
It was a good sighting, probably less than 10 miles from where he's staying over the weekend. So he
See,
doesn't.
I'd be there. If I was your boss, I'd be in that set of woods looking.
Well, they probably are just getting shit-faced.
Yeah, I would imagine so. But yeah, I'd be out there in the woods looking to see if I could see any signs or anything. And probably Googling online to find if I can find an ancient site there or a native burial ground or something like that.
Well, some of these websites actually almost go down to the exact spot where this creature was seen.
Yeah.
And the bridge, such and such a road,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
That's what I try and do. Try and add as much information as you can. And sometimes what works for me is I'll go meet the witness in the spot. So I'll go back, meet the witness there, get some size comparisons. Where was it standing? What kind, what broad is it? That kind of thing. And then I write all of that information in the description. So that if anybody else wants to go out and pick up that investigation and run with it, they've got everything they need in a short bio kind of thing. So, yeah. What was that?
That's my wife's cooking.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go nip off now and feed my husband before he leaves me for another woman. And I'm sure we'll speak again. I hope we'll speak again at some point.
We will hook back up, and maybe if I can get my courage up, I'll regress you on Skype. But I haven't done it yet. But not to say I never will. I just haven't.
That's it. The offer's there. If you ever need a guinea pig, just look me up.
I'll do that. I'm gonna stop recording now.